Hokage Hidden Ace, the time-traveling Hyuga who outshines Madara. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 61, Tsunade, it's a showdown. As long as I'm in Konoha, Danzo can't think of anything else. When the time comes to send people into the Kingdom of Rain, Konoha won't be able to fight even if he doesn't want to. You won't have a choice. For this war, Sand Shinobi Village has been preparing for a long time. Everything is ready, except for the east wind from Damingfu. And how to provoke the daimyo's anger and make him feel a sense of crisis? It's very simple. It's just that someone helped create chaos, which could save third-generation Kazekage a lot of effort. The effort of frame-up was saved. It was enough to determine that the escalation of the conflict was caused by Konoha. You create chaos yourself, trigger an escalation of conflict, and risk being exposed. When the daimyo knows that he has been deceived, he will be very angry. If someone else does it, third-generation Kazekage will have no such worries. Konoha, Tsunade once again came to the Hokage office building. This is the third time that the third Hokage has approached Tsunade since the meeting. The first time in the conference room, Tsunade didn't give a clear answer. The second time she pressed, Tsunade said she still needed to think about it. Now it's the third time. Tsunade needs to give the third Hokage a satisfactory answer. After all, nothing can happen over and over again. Old man. Entering Hokage's office, Tsunade said hello first, then closed the door, and then sat down on the sofa in Hokage's office. Tsunade, according to the information collected by the village, Sand Shinobi Village has sent a group of support people and is preparing to enter the Kingdom of Rain. The third Hokage did not tell Tsunade to go to the Land of Rain, but it hinted to her that once the war breaks out, you will be needed on the front line. Tsunade seemed not to understand the third Hokage's hint, waved her fist and said, "Since war is unavoidable, let's fight it." Tsunade. Old man, I won't go to the front line. I need to be in charge of the village and the medical department. Tsunade directly interrupted third Hokage's persuasion. Grandma is gone. Shinshu and Kushina are still young. They need me, and the medical department can't do without me. But we need you on the front lines. The third Hokage couldn't help but increase his voice. Unfortunately, this didn't scare Tsunade. Don't scare me, old man, otherwise I will hide in Daming Mansion in fear, and a lot of things may happen. The third Hokage's momentum was instantly extinguished. It's like someone's neck is stuck. I know I'm needed on the front line, but I can't leave without worry. Tsunade expressed her attitude to the third Hokage. The third Hokage asked in confusion, Tsunade, why are you worried? Could it be that I will also target Naoki and Kushina, or Hyuga Shizuka? The only people in Konoha that Tsunade can't let go of are Naoki and Kushina, plus Shizuka. I'm not worried about the man in Umbu's prison. Once I leave, if you use him, Akamichi will not be able to stop him. You and I both know what he will do, so I can't leave. I'll tell you my truth, I just don't trust you, so I can't leave unless you kill Shimura Danzo. The third Hokage originally wanted to give Tsunade a promise, promising that he would not use Shimura Danzo, but before the words were spoken, he found that he could not give such a promise. Because third Hokage needs someone to help him deal with some things that he can't handle on his own. Shimura Danzo is the best choice. Moreover, Shimura Danzo's combat command ability is also good. During the first ninja war, Shimura Danzo proved that he had such ability. If a war breaks out, Jingyi will go to the battlefield in my place. If I can do it, he can too. In addition, Nara Lushin is a good commander. Tsunade came to the third Hokage for a showdown and told him clearly why she was unwilling to leave the village and go to the front line. Well now, you are not even willing to give me a promise, how dare I leave? Don't let Shimura Danzo come out as soon as I leave, and then you can cause all kinds of trouble. It's disgusting. During the showdown, Tsunade also recommended Shizuchi and Nara Lushin. Is Shizuchi okay? The third Hokage has great doubts. As for Nara Lushin, there is no need to question how strong the other party is. The third Hokage has a clear idea. If the Hokage faction hadn't been torn into two factions and Ino Shikacho was bearing Tsunade's mark, the third Hokage would not have taken away the position of Nara Shikashin's Jonin class monitor. Tsunade stood up from the sofa, straightened her clothes, and said angrily, "Old man, don't underestimate people. Jingyi is the person I brought out. I dare say that in the whole of Konoha, except for me, there is no more suitable candidate than him. Since you can't give me a promise, then I can only let Jingyi go to the front line in my place." Tsunade dares to say this, which means that Shizuchi really has the ability to replace Tsunade. Third Hokage picked up his pipe and started smoking a little irritably. Tsunade, Danzo's ability. Impossible. Tsunade sternly rejected the third Hokage. Want to release Shimura Danzo? I don't agree. As long as I am in Konoha, Shimura Danzo will not be able to come out of the Umbu prison. Tsunade will go to Umbu at any time to investigate, in order to prevent the third Hokage from playing some tricks, secretly releasing Shimura Danzo, and then hiding his identity and operating secretly. Alas, the third Hokage sighed. This is a big deal. Danzo, you really disappoint me. No room for negotiation? The third Hokage's voice became deeper. Tsunade said with a strong attitude, there is no room for negotiation, unless you hand him over to me, then I, Tsunade, will immediately lead the people straight to the border camp. When I didn't ask. The third Hokage shut up decisively. Lock Shimura Danzo in the Umbu prison. Although Shimura Danzo cannot be activated, at least he is alive and well. Once he is handed over to Tsunade, with Tsunade's decisiveness, Shimura Danzo may not survive more than 3 days. Not to mention 3 days, I'm afraid you'd be lucky to survive more than 3 hours. In short, I will not leave, and Shimura Danzo cannot be released. Old man, I respect you, and I hope you respect me, and don't do anything that makes it difficult for everyone. When Shizuchi said this, Tsunade still had some hope for the third Hokage, but now that she saw it, there was no hope. I'm afraid that as soon as Tsunade stepped forward with her front foot, Shimura Danzo released his back foot. Now that we have completely given up hope, let's keep things business. I respect you, and I hope you can respect me. Although you are a Hokage, it will not be easy for you if there is trouble. Tsunade stormed off. Shortly after she left, Koharu and Mito Manabu arrived at the Hokage office. Noticing that the third Hokage looked unhappy, the two knew that the negotiation had not been successful. Hiruzen, Tsunade refused? Koharu asked tentatively as he moved to bed. Rejected. The third Hokage sighed. She told me clearly that she was unwilling to leave the village because she was afraid that I would release Danzo and activate him, but she recommended Hyuga Jingyi and Nara Lushin. Hyuga Jingyi? Is that possible? Moving to bed, Koharu and Mito Manabu couldn't help but raise a question mark. Episode 62, Jiraiya, I can see that women like handsome men. They admitted that Shizuchi's medical skills were good, but what about other aspects? They desperately wanted Tsunade to go to the front line. What was their real reason? In addition to Tsunade's medical skills and ability to prepare medicine, isn't the real purpose just to activate Shimura Danzo? Whether it's the third Hokage, Koharu, or Mito Manabu, they don't want the Hokage faction to be divided into 2 factions. They didn't dare to let them take action to dismantle Tsunade's faction. But they were unwilling to disintegrate, so they could only let Shimura Danzo be the knife. As long as Tsunade leaves the village and they get Shimura Danzo out, they can start taking action. Afterwards, when Tsunade had an attack, they could also blame everything on Shimura Danzo. Shimura Danzo is very skilled at taking the blame. However, their plan failed before it even started. Tsunade didn't accept the move at all, and even showed up. The third Hokage frowned and said, since Tsunade is sure, it means that Hyuga Shizuka is capable enough to sit in the camp, and you are also aware of Nara Lushin's commanding ability. It's a pity that Danzo. The 3 of them were silent for a while. Finally, Mito Manoyen said quietly, just wait for the opportunity. They can target other people overtly or covertly, but they cannot use these methods to deal with Tsunade, because Tsunade's identity is too special. If you dare to play these tricks, she will turn around and go to the Daiming mansion to find the daimyo. The daimyo would only obviously favor Tsunade. The feeling of a dog biting a hedgehog is unpleasant. Don't bite it, you will feel uncomfortable and your vital interests will be affected. But bite it, and the thorn that is sure to your mouth may not be able to get the benefits back. This is very uncomfortable. After returning home, Tsunade immediately approached Jingyi. Jingyi has completely become the #1 strategist of this family. Just stabilize the situation. As long as you stay in the village and ensure that Shimura Danzo stays in prison safely, there is no need to worry about anything else. Even if the war is lost, the responsibility will not fall on you. Jingyi comforted Tsunade and told her not to think nonsense. Tsunade said worriedly, I'm not afraid of the old man and the others causing trouble, I'm afraid of losing the war. The situation in the country of rain is too chaotic. Once a fight breaks out between Konoha, Sand Shinobi Village, Iwa Ninja Village, and Rain Shinobi Village, it will be a mess. You hit me, I hit him, and several parties fight each other. There may be heavy losses, but Konoha will not be defeated, believe me. In the original work, Konoha's war in the Land of Rain appears to be a victory, but in fact it is a defeat. This is why Tsunade and Orochimaru hate the title of Sannin. Because Konoha did not win the war, it was Sancho Hanzo who took the initiative to surrender. However, as losers, they became the heroes of the village and the superior Sannin in the eyes of others. Jingyi raised his clenched fist. I will not accept failure either. Feeling Shizuchi's strong confidence, Tsunade had no choice but to say, okay, then it's up to you to get over to the land of rain. I'm in charge of the village. As long as I'm in the village, no one can release Shimura Danzo. If you dare to let go, I will tear you apart. Let's see who is most affected. The third Hokage cherishes its feathers, otherwise it would not reuse Shimura Danzo in various ways. On the premise of cherishing her own feathers, she is not willing to face the criticism of the Daming Palace, so Tsunade has the confidence to say such things. Yes, keep this domineering attitude. I like women who show their domineering attitude. Jingyi laughed and raised his hand to pinch Tsunade's face. Tsunade slapped his hand away angrily. Konoha hopes that Sand Shinobi Village can exercise restraint. Sand Shinobi Village seems to have no intention of restraint, and instead directly sends more people to the Land of Rain. Although the number of additional people is not many, it has made its attitude clear. The attitude is clear, Sand Shinobi Village will not stop here. Konoha had no other choice but to follow up. At this point, it has already been indicated that war is about to break out. Konoha scolded Sand Shinobi Village while providing reinforcements, and the village's mobilization did not stop at the same time. To be honest, I have just been stationed at the border camp for a year, and I really don't want to go to the country of rain at this time. In the tavern, Jingyi attended the party between Tsunade and the three of them and started complaining after drinking a few glasses of wine. Tsunade will stay in the village, but Orochimaru and Jiraiya can't run away. They need to enter the rain country with Shizuchi and reinforcements. So there was a dinner party before leaving, and Tsunade brought Shizuchi with her. Shizuchi and Orochimaru didn't have a very good relationship, but at least they could chat together. Jiraiya was an acquaintance, so they all quickly became familiar with each other. But when Tsunade held Jingyi's hand, Jiraiya began to become silent. Listening to Jingyi's complaint, Orochimaru smiled lightly and said, I still have many experiments in hand, but unfortunately, the experiments have to be stopped for now. Just after I bought the puppet from Shizuchi, and the related experiments hadn't even started, war mobilization came. Shizuchi didn't want to leave the village, and so did Orochimaru. I'm better than you. Jingyi smiled and said, I am a medical ninja. I only need to stay in the camp to treat illnesses and take care of the wounded. If I don't have time to prepare some medicine, I am not like the two of you who have to enter the battlefield to fight. Maybe we can work together some. Orochimaru and Shizuchi were chatting happily. Jiraiya sat aside, feeling unhappy. So quiet today? Tsunade poured a glass of wine and pushed it to Jiraiya. Tsunade felt strange. The person who usually talks the most is dull today, which doesn't seem like Jiraiya's style. No way. Even though he felt uncomfortable in his heart, he couldn't admit it with his mouth. Jiraiya picked up the wine glass, drank the wine in the glass in one sip, and said inconsistently, I just saw that they were very engaged in chatting, and I didn't want to disturb them. That's okay. Seeing that Jiraiya didn't want to join, Tsunade didn't force it. After the dinner, Jingyi and Tsunade took the first step. Jiraiya was still drinking. Orochimaru looked at him with disgust and tooted, some things need to be said. If you don't say it, you won't have a chance. Jiraiya likes Tsunade, Orochimaru knows it very well, it has always been this way since he was a child. It's a pity that Jiraiya's way of expressing his love is a bit unbearable. In addition, since they grew up together, Tsunade can't have any feelings for Jiraiya. What's the use of saying it? I finally understand. Tsunade just likes handsome people. The smile on Orochimaru's face disappeared. Idiot. He almost forgot how long it had been since he scolded Jiraiya like this. He thought it would be better when he became an adult, but now it seems, what a piece of shit. You can just die. With your virtue, Tsunade would only be able to take a liking to you. Resisting the urge to kick Jiraiya, Orochimaru walked away with a dark face. Jiraiya was left sitting alone in the tavern drinking wine. After leaving the tavern, Jingyi went to buy a lot of parts and materials. He had a feeling that these materials and parts would be put to use soon. As for Jiraiya, Shizuchi didn't ask, and Tsunade wouldn't say much. She knew that Jiraiya liked her and had always liked him since she was a child, but she couldn't be attracted to Jiraiya, let alone like him. As for the reason? Tsunade thought it might be because they were too familiar. They had grown up together as classmates, partners, and teammates. After more than 10 years, they had become accustomed to the way of getting along with each other, and there was no way to transform such a relationship into a relationship between a man and a woman. Knowing this, Tsunade would not point it out because it would only embarrass everyone. Jingyi was ready to go to the Kingdom of Rain. Kushina, Xingshu, and his little apprentice, Xiao Huangmao, also knew about it. Jingyi, didn't you just come back from the border camp? Why are you going to the battlefield again? Kushina was full of reluctance, pouting and holding Jingyi's arm without letting go. Episode 63, Kushina, I just can't bear to leave Jingyi. Nawaki and Namikaze Minato also didn't understand that given Shizuchi's situation, he shouldn't be drafted to the front line immediately. Silly girl, because the village needs me. If the war doesn't break out, I will definitely stay in the village. As a ninja of the village, shouldn't I rush to the battlefield when the village is threatened? Jingyi smiled and pinched Kushina's nose gently. For some dark plans and calculations, Shizuchi and Tsunade can just take the initiative. There is no need to involve Kushina and the others. At least they don't need to know that until they grow up. So Jingyi has to find other excuses for himself. But I can't bear to leave you. Kushina's big eyes were filled with sparkling tears. I can't bear to leave you, but this is my mission. Do you remember what I once said to you? Kushina sniffed and nodded her head vigorously. Tsunade wordlessly handed over a piece of paper. This girl's dependence on Shizuchi has reached the point where Tsunade is disgusted. Jingyi comforted Kushina and glanced at the rope tree. Nasaki, if the war comes, your group of ninjas will graduate early, and even the transition period will be very short. Jiraiya will definitely go to the battlefield, and you won't be able to learn from him then. Ah? The rope tree suddenly became anxious. Then what should I do? I can't stay in the village forever. My dream is to become a Hokage, so that I can protect everyone. That's great, my dream is to become a Hokage and protect the village and everyone. Xiao Huangmao glanced at Xingshu. Their dreams were the same. It's good if you can protect yourself. Tsunade gave her brother a big pussy. Xingshu grimaced in pain and wanted to curse, but didn't dare. However, Naoki's approaching graduation is indeed a problem. Let him become Jiraiya's disciple, and as a result, Jiraiya will enter the battlefield. You can't just throw Naoshu into the battlefield as soon as he graduates, right? Konoha has not fallen to the point where it needs a new generation genin to go to the battlefield. Jingyi knew Tsunade's inner worries. He didn't want Naoki to enter the battlefield prematurely. The curse of the detonating talisman was a bit scary. The village has not yet reached the point where we need the new genin to go to the battlefield. If we really need it, just send him to the camp and let him follow me and help me. Theoretically, the possibility of new ninjas being sent to the battlefield is very low. But no one can predict the trend of the war. Once the war is too intense and the casualties in the village are too large, who cares whether you are a new genin or not? As long as you are a ninja in the village, you have the obligation to go to the battlefield and fight for the village. Once this happens, Xingshu would be better off following him and taking action in the camp medical department. I will arrange it when the time comes. Tsunade agreed with Jingyi's suggestion. Rather than letting the rope tree follow Jiraiya to the battlefield, it would be better to let him stay in the camp to fight. Feeling the atmosphere of war will also allow the rope tree to grow. As for entering the battlefield and fighting for your life, that's not necessary. With Jingyi here, the safety of the rope tree is no problem. Minato, you can study in school with peace of mind. When you graduate, the teacher will teach you personally. If you have any questions while I am not in the village, you can ask Tsunade and she will help you. Okay, teacher. Namikaze Minato is a good baby and will obey the teacher's arrangements. He does not have the rebellious gene of Nezuki. As for Naoki's rebellion, Tsunade slapped him away with 2 slaps. If you don't listen and still complain, I can only beat you. After a beating, let's see if you still dare to clamor to enter the battlefield. Tsunade has always been good at convincing people with her virtues, and her virtues are all imprinted on her fists. Naoki feels this deeply. Her sister's power of virtue has always been abundant, especially when she beat him. Sancho Hanzo's plan was successful. He successfully intensified the conflict between Konoha and Sand Shinobi Village, causing the 2 villages to begin sending additional troops to the Rain Country. But his success is based on the basic conditions of suffering in the Kingdom of Rain. Logically speaking, Sanshou Hanzo should be happy when the plan is successful, but he cannot be happy at this moment because the Land of Rain is even more chaotic. Sand Shinobi Village reinforced, and Konoha also began to reinforce. Seeing that both Konoha and Sand Shinobi Village have sent reinforcements, IWA Ninja Village will definitely not sit idly by and ignore it, so they also send reinforcements to the Land of Rain. Seeing that Konoha and Sand Shinobi Village began to build war camps in the Land of Rain, IWA Ninja Village followed suit and built war camps. IWA Shinobi Village will not allow his pace to slow down the opponent, whether it is Sand Shinobi Village or Konoha. When others play their cards, you also play their cards, and the result is that you are also involved. Originally, the conflict between Sand Shinobi Village and Konoha escalated. As IWA Ninja Village also began to raise its stakes, IWA Ninja Village was also involved. People from the 3 major shinobi villages will do it when they meet in the Rain Country, but no matter which village you come from, even Rain Shinobi Village is no exception. When you meet the ninjas in Rain Shinobi Village, if you recognize them, they will run away quickly. If you don't, they will beat you too. As the situation in the Kingdom of Rain becomes increasingly chaotic, Shizuchi, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, and others also rushed to the Land of Rain with the second batch of reinforcements. You must listen to Sister Tsunade and eat well. You must not starve yourself or lock yourself in a room. Do you understand? Kushina held Jingyi's hand and refused to let go. Jingyi squatted down and comforted the little girl who was reluctant to leave. Wu, I will be good and obedient, but you have to keep yourself safe. Kushina cried until the tip of her nose was red and her voice was choked with sobs, but she still couldn't stop Jingyi from leaving. Well, I promise, I will never take any risks and will return to the village safely. Jingyi smiled and promised Kushina. Kushina wiped her tears and nose, regardless of whether they would stain her clothes. We pulled a hook. Good. Raising his hand and extending his little finger to hook Kushina as a guarantee, Shizuchi picked her up and handed her to Tsunade. The little girl is too clingy and relies on him a bit seriously. If she doesn't let Tsunade hold her, Kushina might not let go. After waving goodbye, Jingyi decisively turned around and left, walking into the large army. The more he pushed and pulled, the sadder Kushina became. You, Sister Tsunade, I can't bear to leave Shizuchi. Kushina lay in Tsunade's arms, crying. Tsunade also has a big head, and she is not good at comforting people, especially little girls. If it's a rope tree, it's easier to deal with. 2 big dicks can go down it and make sure it behaves well. But Kushina can't do it. Then you grow up quickly. When Jingyi leaves the village, you can go out with him. Really? Of course, when have I ever lied to you? 2 months ago, you lied to me and said you had no money to eat. Damn girl, I'm trying to comfort you, but you're going to stab my lungs, right? Episode 64, offending 2 people with 1 sentence, it is you Jiraiya, as expected. Forget it, this girl doesn't want to be beaten, just let her have a lung tube, and we'll take care of her when she grows up. Tsunade had no choice, but to compromise. Senior. Walking into the crowd and leaving the village with the team, Jingyi greeted Nara Lushin. Hello. Nara Lushin's attitude was good. It's just that the look in his eyes is a bit strange. Jing has been used to this for a long time. Look, you can look at it however you want. Anyway, it's not the first time you've thought this way. I, Hyuga Jingyi, am a soft-cooked person, so what's the matter? I hope we can have a good cooperation. Nara Lushin is the combat commander assigned by the village, and Jingyi is the medical ninja who is in charge of the camp. Cooperation between the 2 is definitely inevitable, one ensures the treatment of the camp, and the other is responsible for the combat commander. In addition, it is good to get closer to people who belong to the same faction. I dare not say cooperation, it is all for the village, it should be. Jingyi replied with a smile. Nara Luxian nodded slightly, he agreed with this, saying that cooperation is a bit unproductive. Generally speaking, when they met for the first time, Nara Lushin felt that Jingyi was not a difficult person to get along with. He was afraid that Jingyi would be aloof because of Tsunade, which would cause problems for him as a combat commander. He can take care of others, but he can't take care of Jingyi, and he can't take care of it. They are all people appointed by the village. Combat command is your responsibility, and the medical aspects of the camp are under my control. Why are you dictating to me? Nara Luxian's worry is not unnecessary, because once he and Jingyi don't get along well, it will easily lead to some conflicts. Don't look at the fact that Ino Shikacho is on Tsunade's side, with Tsunade as the leader. When it comes to relationships, Shizuchi is closer to Tsunade than them, so don't underestimate the power of pillow wind. This power is greater for men than for women. Jingyi is willing to get along well with each other and work together, which is good news for Nara Lushin. After a few polite words with Nara Lushin, Shizuchi immediately approached Orochimaru and Jiraiya. Compared to Orochimaru and Jiraiya, Shizuchi doesn't like to get along with people like Nara Shikashin, who play with their brains. It's too tiring. When you say something, the other person will think about it in their mind first. This may be a common problem among the Nara clan. People who are too smart will always involuntarily weigh the gains and losses, and think about what should be said and what should not be said. After a few days, Jiraiya has recovered. Although he likes Tsunade very much, he will not affect himself or even the village because of his liking for Tsunade. Seeing Jingyi walking over, Jiraiya took the initiative and said, I have already heard this kid say about your arrangements for rope tree. Once the war breaks out, it will be very dangerous for him to follow me into the battlefield. It is best to stay in the camp. Speaking of which, I can become the teacher of rope tree, and I have to thank you for putting in good words for me. You Jiraiya, you can offend two people with just one sentence, right? Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and stared at Jiraiya. Jiraiya coughed and explained, Orochimaru, I didn't mean that, I was just happy, yes, just happy. Tsunade and Orochimaru mentioned the matter of choosing a teacher, but Orochimaru did not refuse, and in the end the teacher became Jiraiya. Orochimaru wouldn't think twice about such a thing, and it wasn't worth it. The key is that I don't care, but you can't say that. It makes you laugh. Now you know how powerful it is. Jingyi wants to put his hands on his hips and laugh a few times. Why should I say nice things? Tsunade is the one who makes the decision, not me. You'd better be careful and don't let me catch you. Giving Jiraiya a know-it-all look, Orochimaru ignored him and turned to chat with Shizuchi. Jingyi also decided to ignore Jiraiya, who made this guy's mouth break. You know you're offending people by saying it, but you still say it. I think the puppet you made will become a surprise weapon on the battlefield, and there are many resources that can be used on the battlefield. What is the most important thing in making a puppet? Material. The most indispensable thing on the battlefield is materials, such as enemy corpses. As long as Jingyi lets go of his worries and uses the enemy's corpses to make puppets, and puts these puppets on the battlefield, he will definitely give the enemy a surprise. It depends on the situation. In fact, I don't want to touch the corpse, even if it is the corpse of the enemy. If necessary, I will do it. Jingyi is not a hypocritical person. If he doesn't want to go back, if necessary, he can just do it directly, as long as he doesn't use his own body. As for the enemy's corpse, why do you care so much? Wouldn't it be perfect to use the enemy's corpse to make a puppet and then use it to deal with the enemy? Orochimaru smiled slightly. If you are willing, I can provide you with a lot of materials and parts. It seems that Orochimaru came prepared. If you want to study puppets, you must put in some effort. Orochimaru is a person who works hard. You might as well help me make the puppet, and I'll do the last step. Jingyi suddenly had an idea. Since he didn't want to touch the body, why not let others do it? He could just complete the last step. Anyway, Orochimaru doesn't mind playing with the enemy's corpse and letting him make puppets, he will definitely not refuse. Okay, but I need part of the puppet to make. Don't worry, I won't ask for too much. Orochimaru immediately put forward his conditions. Good. How can you refuse such a good thing? Jingyi immediately agreed to Orochimaru's suggestion, and the two reached a cooperation. Seeing Jiraiya and Orochimaru reach a cooperation with smiles on their faces, Jiraiya and Monk Joji were left scratching their heads as they stood aside. Shizuchi, aren't you a medical ninja? Why are you involved in making puppets? Orochimaru, when did you become interested in puppets? Even if he hasn't seen it with his own eyes, Jiraiya believes that as long as Orochimaru wants, he can get started at any time. After all, Orochimaru is too versatile. Jingyi looked up and down at Jiraiya, who was slovenly dressed and had not changed clothes for an unknown amount of time. He smelled strange and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Ha, ha. Orochimaru followed closely and gave Jiraiya a meaningful smile. Jiraiya? No, what do you two mean? Are you so stingy? I just said the wrong thing. As for targeting me like this? It's so annoying, I really want to know. Jiraiya scratched his head anxiously. Jingyi and Orochimaru let him hear part of the content, but did not tell him the truth, which made him feel itchy and uncomfortable all over. Tell me, just tell me, to satisfy my curiosity. Jiraiya kept asking questions in a flattering manner. Orochimaru, who had long been accustomed to all this, remained unmoved and just looked at him with a half-smile. Episode 65, the status sequence of the Hyuga clan. Orochimaru, who had long been accustomed to all this, remained unmoved and just looked at him with a half-smile. But Jingyi couldn't stand it. The shameless Jiraiya is really annoying, just annoying, and he keeps going at you. This bastard probably supported the young lady with money for several days, without even taking a shower or changing clothes. Jingyi, who couldn't bear it, had no choice but to surrender. Don't worry, I just make some special puppets. Orochimaru wants to study these puppets, so I reached a cooperation with him. On the battlefield, the enemy's corpse can also be made into a puppet. This is a free material. Do you understand? Special puppet? Jiraiya scratched his head and thought, what kind of puppet can be considered a special puppet? Very curious, right? But if I don't tell you, it's useless. Also, stay away from me. Roll. Jiraiya wanted to use the same trick against Shizuchi on Orochimaru, but as soon as he got closer, Orochimaru was greeted with a cold face and an icy rolling sign. Okay. Jiraiya wisely walked farther away. He knew that if he didn't get out, Orochimaru would definitely take action. The number of the second batch of support teams was not too large, only 500 or 600 people at full strength. The situation in the Kingdom of Rain had not yet reached the point where the village needed to send thousands of ninjas to join the war. When there are more people, the speed of the journey will slow down. In addition, various supplies need to be transported, so it is impossible to go faster even if you want to. Medical supplies can also be carried directly using seal scrolls, but some ordinary supplies cannot. The cost of using seal scrolls is too high, and the Konoha family cannot afford such a consumption. Such supplies can only be pulled by carriages and ninjas. Back. As for the medical supplies needed for the frontline camp, they were all concentrated in several sealed scrolls, and they were all carried with Jingyi. In addition to him, the village also dispatched a group of medical ninjas to follow him, numbering 15. These people are under his control. If the war becomes tense, additional manpower will continue to be deployed. On the way, after being scolded several times by Orochimaru, Jiraiya finally took advantage of the team's break and ran to the river to wash himself and put on clean clothes. There was no strange smell on his body, and he was no longer driven away, so he came to Jingyi's side. Compared to Orochimaru, who always curses and has a cold face, Jiraiya prefers to be with Shizuchi because he can brag and spank. Jingyi, don't you say hello to your tribe? Among the reinforcement team heading to the Land of Rain, there were members of the Hyuga clan. Jiraiya was confused because neither the other party nor Shizuchi had the intention to say hello, let alone take the initiative to talk. Jingyi glanced at his clansmen and smiled faintly. Do you know the status sequence of the Hyuga clan? Zone family and branch house? Jiraiya scratched his head. The answer is correct, but not entirely. Jingyi shook his finger and corrected, it should be the clan, followed by the elders of the branch house, and then the branch house, the clan members with degraded bloodline, the 4 steps. I see. Jiraiya suddenly realized, but he quickly raised a new question. No, even if it is divided like this, there are only 3 steps. Aren't the elders of the branch house also people from the branch house? Since you are from the branch house, why not be classified in the branch house ladder? Because of the family system, if you want to become a branch house elder, unless you get enough merit, the general branch house people cannot serve as elders at all. These branch house elders have no inheritance rights and are forced to bear the caged bird curse. The Zong family, they look down on the people in the branch house. On the surface, they are branch house elders, but in fact, their hearts are with the clan, so they have to become a separate ladder. Now you understand? F***K. Jiraiya was stunned. Is this so realistic? This is why when it comes to branch house interests or issues, most branch house elders do not stand on the side of the branch house, because as branch house elders, their hearts are not on the side of the branch house at all. Isn't it said that if you become a branch house person, you will always be a branch house person? In this case, why should they move closer to the Zong family? Jiraiya's doubts grew. Jingyi smiled and looked at the sky, causing Jiraiya to look up at the sky as well, thinking there was something in the sky. The result is nothing. Because they became branch house people, but they only became branch house people because of the inheritance system. Their Byakug impurity is still very high. If there is a chance, their descendants can get together with the people of the clan. Ah? Jiraiya looked confused. Orochimaru also listened with interest. No matter how tall the Zong family is, there are only so many of them. Not every generation has a suitable pairing choice, so these branch house people with high purity and white eyes have become the choice. In addition to the small number, we also need to pay attention to blood relatives. It is more difficult for people in the clan to complete a reasonable pairing. My mind is so messed up. Are all big families so tolerant? Jiraiya was suddenly glad that he was a civilian ninja and not born into a big family. Don't look like that. Jingyi knew that Jiraiya had obviously misunderstood something, so he explained, not all ninja families are like this. In the entire Konoha, no, even in the entire ninja world, only the inheritance of the Hyuga family is like this, and other families do not. For example, Uchiha doesn't have so many strange rules. Actually, many ninja families do not reject foreign marriages and intermarriage, such as the Senju clan. Recalling the Senju clan's sexy moves, Jingyi couldn't help but laugh. The Senju clan used to like to marry their distant relatives, the Uzumaki clan, which caused many people in the Uzumaki clan to be full of resentment because the Senju clan always married away beautiful and talented girls from their clan. This kind of operation is really a bit embarrassing. It's not an exaggeration to call it a showy operation. Then the Senju clan will also marry off girls from the clan, isn't that enough? Marriage, isn't this normal operation? Idiot, why do you think the Uzumaki clan is full of resentment? Orochimaru couldn't stand it anymore. Jiraiya was still the same, always missing a string. I kept asking questions that I understood, but Jingyi already made it very clear. If both sides behave like this, what else does the Uzumaki clan have to complain about? It is clear that the Senju clan are thieves who always take advantage, while the Uzumaki clan always suffers, while others are full of resentment. Jiraiya didn't react until he was scolded. Even a shameless person like him couldn't help complaining, "This is too stupid." Otherwise, why would others feel resentful? Jiraiya can always bring joy to people, and he can always make some silly mistakes. Occasionally, if Orochimaru scolds him, he will choose to ignore it. If the scolding is severe, he will immediately turn against Orochimaru and scold him. What's interesting is that once Jiraiya turns against him and scolds him, Orochimaru will always walk away with a cold face, as if he doesn't want to deal with a fool, and makes Jiraiya scream in anger. Episode 66. Remind Orochimaru again and again. 3 days later, the team arrived at the border camp. The reinforcement team would rest at the border camp for a night, and then go straight to the camp being built in the Kingdom of Rain. There are too few border camps to house too many people. It can only be used as a material transit camp. It rained non-stop all day and night, which made people feel irritated. In addition, there were too many people, and the wooden huts in the camp could not be accommodated, so most people could only squeeze into tents. Even Jingyi couldn't go to the medical room to rest, because the medical room was already crowded with wounded people sent back from the Land of Rain. Orochimaru unfortunately was assigned to a tent with Jiraiya, while Shizuchi slept alone. Giving Orochimaru a sympathetic look, Shizuchi got into the tent. After several days of contact, Jingyi finally understood that anyone who was alone with Jiraiya would definitely be annoyed by him. At least at this stage, Jiraiya was a chatterbox. He always had endless things to say and couldn't stop talking. Even though he is a talkative person, he often makes mistakes. That night, Jingyi didn't sleep well. It was sweltering in the tent, the heavy rain kept falling, and the sound of water droplets hitting the tent was very loud. People who are not used to it couldn't sleep at all. Not sleeping well caused Jingyi to yawn continuously the next day. After replenishing a batch of consumable supplies, the reinforcement team gathered and set off at dawn, heading straight to the Rain Kingdom camp. The camp in the Country of Rain is still under construction. There is a wall built of wood around the perimeter. As for the houses, they are still under construction. Most ninjas can only make do with tents. Several people are crammed into one tent, and the sleeping conditions are even worse than in border camps. Fortunately, Jingyi no longer needs to squeeze into the tent. As a big shot in the medical room, he has an independent lounge, so he doesn't need to crowd with others or live in a tent. The only bad thing is that you have to start taking over the work immediately after entering the camp, because there are really a lot of wounded in the medical department. Clean the wound and suture it for treatment. Get 2 second-type antidote potions over here. Prepare the list of medicinal materials. I need to prepare some antidote potions. As soon as he took over the job, Jingyi was so busy that he had to take over the patients and study the antidote. He didn't even have time to take a breath. Many wounded people have been poisoned. If you want to treat these people, you need to prepare the corresponding antidote and detoxify them before proceeding with the next step of treatment. Many ninjas in Sand Shinobi Village are good at using poison, and the poisons they use are constantly being updated. This time when he came from the village, Jingyi brought a lot of antidote potions, but unfortunately not many of them were put to use. Many antidote potions need to be cracked from scratch. Clear the lounge and don't let me disturb you. In order to crack the poison and develop targeted antidote, Jingyi needs a quiet place. So his job changed from treating the wounded to researching antidotes. The people from the medical department quickly took action, vacating the largest restroom, and then moved all kinds of medicinal materials and needed equipment into the restroom. By the way, go ask Orochimaru to come over. I need his help here. Yes, sir. After receiving the order, the ninjas from the medical department immediately ran to ask for Orochimaru. Soon, Orochimaru arrived. Need my help? Entering the lounge, Orochimaru stared at Shizuchi, who was preparing the antidote, and curiously looked at the poison samples collected. After looking at it for a while, I couldn't help but smile and shake my head. Sand Shinobi Village is still the same, and the types of poisons are still the same. Jing said without looking up. Orochimaru, please help me analyze the poison sample. It contains a lot of Desert Lion Majesty's mixed poison. This should be what you are good at. Don't think that there are no animals living in the desert. In fact, most of the creatures living in the desert are highly poisonous, such as snakes, lizards, scorpions, etc. These things can collect venom, and the ninjas in Sand Shinobi Village often have trouble with such creatures. No problem, leave it to me. If possible, I would like to be your assistant. Orochimaru made his request. He is very good at doing these things, but he also has his own selfish motives. Rather than going to the battlefield to kill enemies, he would rather stay in the camp and do something he wants to do, such as making puppets. There are many corpses of enemies placed in the morgue of the medical department. These corpses have high research value in Orochimaru's eyes. Anyway, it's the enemy's corpse, so just use it. But before doing this, he needs to stay in the camp legitimately, otherwise he will be sent to the battlefield soon. Shaking the antidote in his hand, Shurzwa glanced at Orochimaru. Good guy, I can be a jerk, and you, Orochimaru, are also a jerk. Whatever. If you want to stay, then just stay. Anyway, the situation of the war cannot be changed by Orochimaru alone. If he stays as an assistant, it can also save Shizuchi a lot of trouble. After all, this guy is so versatile. You can do anything, as long as you can drive him, he will definitely give you a satisfactory return. With his goal accomplished, Orochimaru put on a smile, put on rubber gloves, and began to identify the toxin samples. Desert vipers, highly venomous lizards, hey, there are also water lizards and sea vipers, there are many types of plant toxins. Orochimaru entered work mode. He was responsible for analyzing toxin samples, while Jingyi was responsible for making antidote potions. In order to make poison, Sand Shinobi Village took great pains to collect highly toxic things everywhere. From animals to plants, there are also various mixed poisons. If there are not enough and corresponding antidote potions, and the ninjas of Sand Shinobi Village collide, Konoha's losses will increase sharply. It is too difficult for many ninjas to kill an enemy, but it becomes much easier if the enemy is injured. Being injured means being poisoned, and being poisoned means that death is not far away. Single toxins are easier to deal with, but mixed poisons are the most troublesome. There is no antidote, and all the medical ninjas have to use medical ninjutsu to remove the poison, which will probably exhaust all the medical ninjas and make them too busy. After analyzing various toxin samples, Orochimaru smiled and said, "Then Shizuchi-kun, my mission is completed." This guy can't wait to cut into his enemy's corpse. Jingyi didn't know what to say, so he could only remind Orochimaru, "Orochimaru, I don't object to you using corpses to make puppets. Anyway, you need to provide the required materials and parts yourself, but I hope you can remember one thing. Never joke with the corpses of your own people. They belong to the village. Hero. As long as a ninja died fighting for the village, even if he was a genin, he should get the respect he deserved. Instead of waiting for the other party to die, use the other party's body to conduct research and experiments. I will strictly abide by our agreement." After making his promise, Orochimaru couldn't wait to walk towards the morgue. I hope this guy won't mess around. Forget it, it's better to be more steady. After thinking about it, he put away the prepared antidote and asked someone to take it away. Jingyi told him, "Immediately send someone to find Senior Nara Lushin and ask him to send more people to the morgue. The corpses of your companions must be placed in the seal scroll as soon as possible." Episode 67. Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of what happens. Ah? The ninja who was about to deliver the antidote was stunned for a moment. "Sir, we have dealt with the corpses of our companions in the village according to strict requirements. Only when the number reaches a certain level, we will use the sealing scrolls to take them away. If they are quickly resettled, a lot of sealing scrolls will be wasted. Do as I say. Go and report." Jingyi would rather waste some seal scrolls than Orochimaru would attack his own corpses. After all, Orochimaru's bottom line, well, there is no bottom line when this guy goes crazy. Instead of worrying, it's better to make arrangements early. If it's Jiraiya's guarantee, Shizuchi can still believe it. As for Orochimaru, forget it, this guy is too impressive. Have to guard against it. No matter how much he tosses the enemy's corpse, no one will say anything, as long as he doesn't kill them all in one fell swoop. And once one's own body is touched and discovered, the reputation will be ruined. When the time comes, Orochimaru's own reputation will be bad, and it might even drag him down. Jingyi didn't want to be blamed for using the corpses of his companions as research materials in a daze. Yes. The ninja who delivered the antidote could only report it obediently. Quickly place the bodies of our own people? Naruto was originally studying the topographic map of the Land of Rain, but the ninja sent by Shizuchi informed him of the matter. Why should we place our own bodies as soon as possible? Could it be that he was worried that someone would attack the body? Have there been any strange people over there at the medical department? Except for the ninjas on duty and the medical ninjas. Lord Orochimaru came over today. He was working as an assistant to Lord Shizuchi to develop antidote potions. Hearing this, Nara understood Shizuchi's worries. He was afraid that Orochimaru would make fun of the corpses of his village comrades. Is Orochimaru such a person? It's really true. People who like to do research and experiments are crazy. Jingyi is not willing to take risks, and Nara Lushin is the same. Because after the incident was exposed, Jingyi was implicated, and he, Nara Lushin, could not escape. After thinking about it, Nara Lushin said deeply, just follow his arrangements. I will report to Lord Hokage personally in the village. Nara Lushin believes that the third Hokage will not object, because the third Hokage knows very well what kind of person his disciple is. Some jokes are not allowed to be made, and some things are not allowed to be touched. Once touched, it is completely on the road of no return. Just in case. After struggling back and forth until late at night, I finally could take a breath. With the increase in the number of medical ninjas and medical staff, the wounded in the medical room were treated and resettled. Only then did Shizuchi get some time and opportunity to breathe. Before the puppet troops of Sand Shinobi Village did not join the war, before Chiyo, the old woman, did not enter the rain. Before the country. These newly developed detoxification agents are sufficient. Next, it is enough to send people to quickly develop according to the proportion. Chiyo likes to use new poisons, and the poisons she develops are very toxic. Another even more terrifying thing is Sancho Hanzo. With full firepower, even Sancho Hanzo, the host, will be poisoned by the poison of Sancho. Which shows how terrible this poison is. If you are poisoned by Sancho fish, you don't need treatment at all, because you won't survive until then. Just look at the final battle between Konoha and Rain Shinobi Village. Sancho Hanzo appears, and only Tsunade, Jiraiya, and Orochimaru are the only 3 dead ninjas in Konoha. Sancho Hanzo is purely a poisonous person. Once the poisonous gas is turned on, he will be completely indistinguishable between friend and foe. You can beat me, but you will never gain anything. It's also thanks to the fact that the poison of the Sancho fish doesn't spread quickly, otherwise the threat of Hanzo the Sancho fish would definitely be as terrifying as Dolua's poison Dolua. Even if I can't defeat you, I can poison the weak ones on your side to death. Regarding Orochimaru, Nara Lushin reported it to the third Hokage and Tsunade meticulously. The third Hokage is the boss, and Tsunade is the card they rely on, so they reported it together. As for how the village will deal with it, Nara Lushin doesn't need to worry about it. He has too many things to take care of and doesn't have the time to bother with such nonsense. Fortunately, he didn't need to worry about the medical department, which saved him a lot of energy. 2 professionally trained communication ninja hawks quickly flew into the sky and flew towards Konoha, despite the heavy rain. Before night, they successfully delivered the scroll to the Konoha Intelligence Department. Then the people from the Intelligence Department immediately separated the scroll and gave it to Tsunade, who was in charge of the medical department, and the third Hokage, who was in charge of the Hokage office. After receiving the scroll, Tsunade opened it and took a look, then threw the scroll aside. She didn't care about this kind of thing. Let the third Hokage worry about it. The third Hokage was not as ambitious as Tsunade. Looking at the scroll, Nara Lushin said that although Shizuchi's arrangements were appropriate, the village's expenses would be greatly increased. He couldn't help but frowned. War is fought on people and finances. It is useless if people and finances cannot keep up. We can only have rich finances without people. There is definitely no shortage of people in Konoha. Among the 5 great ninja villages, Konoha has the largest number of chunin. In terms of finance, it is relatively stable. After all, Senju Tobarama left a relatively rich family fortune. After more than 10 years of development, it is not an exaggeration to say that it is prosperous. I dare not say that it can be compared with the upstart Rain Shinobi Village, at least not by the other 3 major shinobi villages. The problem is that you can't waste money if you have it. Not only is the seal scroll extremely expensive, it's also difficult to make, and the output is pitifully low. Using a large number of seal scrolls to place the corpses would probably cost a lot. Seeing this scroll, third Hokage instinctively wanted to refuse, but the idea of refusal was quickly suppressed by reason. Because this involves his most valued and beloved disciple, Orochimaru. Orochimaru became Shizuchi's assistant, which was not surprising to third Hokage. He knew his disciple's abilities very well, so being an assistant was no problem and he could bring a lot of help to Shizuchi. But the third Hokage was not happy about Orochimaru studying corpses. Again, people who do research and experiments are crazy, and no one is sure what shocking behavior Orochimaru will do when studying corpses. It's just the corpse of the enemy. If he attacks the corpse of his own people, it may cause a lot of trouble. That's all. After careful consideration, third Hokage decided to agree. The bigger the expense, the better. It's just that the expenses in the morgue will be increased a little, and other places will remain the same. This can kill the possibility of Orochimaru attacking his own people. For the sake of my disciples, I can accept a larger expenditure. This also involves Orochimaru. If it were anyone else, third Hokage would definitely tell him to get out of here. Don't you know that war costs a lot of money? Don't know how to save, but still want to waste? The third Hokage's reply was quickly sent to the camp, and with the third Hokage's permission, Nara Lushin no longer paid attention to this matter. As long as the third Hokage knows and gives permission, even if Orochimaru can't help but attack the corpses of his own people, it will be the third Hokage's fault. Episode 68. Orochimaru, not convinced? Hold it in for a while. After resting in the camp for 2 days, the reinforcements began to receive tasks, and ninja teams quickly left the camp and entered the battlefield. On the battlefield of ninjas, there are rarely scenes of large-scale charge battles. Most of them are fought in small squad mode. If the conflict is more tense, a squadron with dozens or hundreds of people is dispatched, which is considered a big battle. After all, the professional limitations of ninjas and the limited number of ninjas make it impossible for ninjas to fight in large-scale battles like ordinary armies. More and more ninjas entered the battlefield, and even Jiraiya received corresponding tasks. But when Jiraiya was about to leave the camp, he suddenly discovered why Orochimaru was not on the team list. Could it be that Orochimaru led other teams to dispatch? Under doubt, Jiraiya approached Nara Shikshin and asked him to go to the morgue of the medical room to find someone. When he came to the morgue, he pushed the gate of opening and looked at the neatly arranged corpses. Jiraiya walked in calmly and found Orochimaru, who was busy in the innermost cubicle of the morgue. Forehead. When he walked into the cubicle, he saw Orochimaru adding parts to the body. Jiraiya paused and looked at the body with blood on his hands and piles of internal organs on the side, and the corners of his eyes twitched. Orochimaru, even if this is the enemy's corpse, we shouldn't destroy it. Orochimaru, who was busy, said without raising his head, the corpse has been used by people from the interrogation department and the intelligence department. It has been mutilated for a long time. I am just using it as waste. Of course Konoha would not be kind enough to help the enemy collect their corpses. The purpose of collecting their own corpses was to take them back to the village for burial, while the enemy's corpses were to dig up intelligence and secrets. All the corpses that can be sent to the morgue have been used. It is not wrong to say that they are waste. If Orochimaru is no longer needed, the corpses will be burned and then buried somewhere. Even then you shouldn't be doing cadaver research. Jiraiya couldn't accept this. Orochimaru remained calm, it's just making puppets. It's a traditional trick of Sand Shinobi Village. Who in the ninja world would jump out and say that Sand Shinobi Village is inhumane? Jiraiya was speechless for a while. Yes, Sand Shinobi Village likes to toy with corpses the most. They like to make corpses into puppets. It makes no sense that Sand Shinobi Village can do this, but Orochimaru can't. Besides, I obtained Jingyi's permission, and these corpses belong to me. I am reasonable and legal and have not made any mistakes. Okay, Jilai has no choice, then you don't need to carry out the mission? Many reinforcements have entered the battlefield, and I will lead a small team out. No need, I am Jingyi-kun's assistant. I can stay in the camp and do what I want to do when there are no tasks. No, why is this? Jiraiya shouted angrily, it's okay for Tsunade to stay in the village. Why don't you Orochimaru go to the battlefield? I can't escape alone? Jiraiya doesn't object to fighting for the village, but any individual will suffer from psychological imbalance. Just like Jiraiya at this time. If Orochimaru went out to fight like him, he would definitely have nothing to think about, but Orochimaru could stay, and he would need to lead his team and run to the battlefield to fight with the enemy. He just likes to be stupid, but that doesn't mean he is really stupid. Click. After placing the last part and cleaning the blood on the body, Orochimaru put the completed body away, raised his head and smiled at Jiraiya with a gloating smile, because I am an assistant. I can help Jingyi analyze the types of poisons, help prepare medicines, and even become a temporary medical ninja. What about you? What can you do? sample, compare with me. I don't accept it. Jiraiya's face gradually turned red. What Orochimaru said was reasonable. He couldn't refute it. After all, Orochimaru was very powerful and he could do these things. Just because you can't refute doesn't mean you're convinced. Ah. So angry. If you have nothing to do, please leave. Please don't affect my work. Orochimaru directly issued an eviction order. I'm going to find Jingyi. Cancel your assistant status. Jiraiya gritted his teeth and walked out of the morgue and went straight to the medical room. Cancel Orochimaru's assistant status? Jingyi, who was taking medicine early in the morning, stood up straight, stretched, and moved his stiff body. Why, he does a pretty good job, whether it is identifying the types of poisons or making potions. He can even act as a medical staff and medical ninja when there is a shortage of people. It's hard to find such an assistant. To be honest, apart from worrying about Orochimaru messing around, Jingyi really likes him as his assistant more and more. With Orochimaru as his assistant, he can save a lot of worries. You won't be too tired. Orochimaru can do a lot of things. But, Jiraiya couldn't explain why, he had no reasonable reason. I can't say that because I am unbalanced in my heart. I hope you, Hyuga, will cancel your status as Orochimaru's assistant. This is simply an international joke. Damn it, if I had known earlier I would have stopped being playful, I would have read more books and become an all-rounder like Orochimaru. Now that I think about it, I regret it. Forget it, just one person, their team has already been disbanded anyway. A normal ninja team will be disbanded after all members pass the Chunin assessment. What to do next and how to develop is your own business. The teacher assigned by the village cannot always be your nanny. After the team is disbanded, whether you want to form a new team yourself or do nothing is your own business. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru were the third Hokage because their teacher was the third Hokage. The third Hokage could not lead them on missions like other teachers all day long, so they could only ask someone to help lead them, so their team continued until all three of them passed. After passing the Jonin assessment, they were completely disbanded. Then they developed separately. Tsunade entered the medical department, Orochimaru and Jiraiya were free men, either performing tasks or doing their own things. This is why Jiraiya and Orochimaru have so many more missions than Tsunade in the original book. Tsunade disbanded the team and entered the medical department. After the Second Ninja War, she was heartbroken and left the village. During this period, there was a gap of more than 10 years without performing tasks. Orochimaru has been busy doing research and experiments, and later defected, so he completed fewer tasks than Jiraiya. Only Jiraiya was like an old cow, performing the task sincerely. Episode 69 successfully leads Jiraiya astray. The teams Kakashi and Obito are in are also quite special. If they were replaced by an ordinary team, they would have gone their separate ways long ago. Speaking of which, if this team had been disbanded earlier, the outcome for these three people might not have been so tragic. Xiao Huangmao kept running around on the battlefield with 3 burdens. After looking at the mission scroll in Jiraiya's hand, Jingyi asked, "Have you received the mission?" Ah? Jiraiya was stunned, and when he came back to his senses, he grinned, haha, yes, I want to lead a ninja team to the front line. The enemies of Sand Shinobi Village continue to invade the area occupied by the village, and the war is getting tight. Then come on, I don't want to see you in the medical room one day. If possible, choose the medical room. The morgue is an unlucky place. Bah. Are you the devil? I haven't even left the camp yet. You, Hyuga, said this, and that's not how you said your blessing. By the way, how is your writing going? Jingyi asked curiously. Jiraiya immediately became energetic. The materials are still being collected. I want to settle them down before continuing to write. Then work hard and try to write books like Jie and Aben. Pure and charming by Jie, young and brave little Aben? TSK, it makes me excited just thinking about it. What? Jiraiya asked in confusion, what by Jie, what Aben? You do not know? Should I know? Okay, let me tell you something. I hope you can absorb it and integrate it. Jingyi started telling Jiraiya a story, but as he listened, Jiraiya's expression began to look strange, his dark face began to turn red, and his straight body was bent over like a cooked prawn, as if what are you enduring? This guy can't be Shirgung. Seeing Jiraiya's behavior, he calmly took a few steps back and put some distance between himself and him. Okay. This story is great. I'm sure that she will be the heroine of my next book. By Jie, a good name, and Aben is also good. No, this one is too common, let's change it. Thinking about the scene of the story he just heard in his mind, Jiraiya immediately blushed, his eyes showed excitement, and his smile gradually became lewd. He, it must be exciting to write. Did I lead Jiraiya astray? Compared with the imperial uncles I saw in my previous life, the imperial uncles in the ninja world are simply too restrained, and can only be regarded as marginal at best. But just like this, it can make countless people see it on fire. If these classics from the previous life are brought out, it will definitely open the eyes of countless people. The combination of this story and my material is simply great. Jiraiya couldn't help but put his hands on his hips and resorted to a backward tactic. Unfortunately, the tent that was raised up somewhere was a bit eye-catching. Master Jingyi, we need. At this time a beautiful medical staff ran in, and just in time to see Jiraiya, who was leaning back with his hands on his hips, he froze in place, and his little face turned red quickly. Abnormal. Jiraiya couldn't laugh anymore. No, I'm not a pervert. It's really not me. Please listen to my explanation. It's over. If this gets out, my Jiraiya reputation will be ruined. Unfortunately, the frightened medical girl turned around and ran away. She didn't even listen to Jiraiya's explanation and decisively put the pervert label on Jiraiya's forehead. Jingyi, you will explain it to me, right? Jiraiya, who was about to cry without tears, could only ask for help. Jingyi looked back at the casserole on the stove. Hey, my medicine is ready, just what the patient needs. Jingyi decisively took the pot and left, leaving Jiraiya alone in the lounge, doubting life. Explain? How should I explain it? Do I have to tell others that because I told you about the Emperor's uncle, you became more and more confused? If you dare to say that, then he, Hyuga, will also become a pervert. It didn't take long for Jiraiya's perverted incident to spread throughout the medical room. The medical staff, medical ninjas, duty ninjas, and the wounded all knew that there was a pervert in the lounge. This pervert, in broad daylight and with the world clear, shamelessly ran around with his tent on his back. Listening to the version that went viral in the medical room, Jingyi could only silently mourn for Jiraiya for 3 seconds in his heart. You can't blame him. Who made Jiraiya react so strongly? Alas, I have been engaged in CC since I was a child, but as a result, my willpower is so poor that I can tell a story from a tent. No wonder I am regarded as a pervert. Fortunately, Jiraiya has experienced many such social death scenes. Although he was very embarrassed, at least he did not react excessively. After the shame at that time passed, he laughed like a normal person. Thanks to his personality, if it were someone more paranoid, he would probably be P************** D to death. Jiraiya, who was too embarrassed to stay in the camp, immediately entered the battlefield with the assigned ninja team. Brother, please be patient. The broken kunai is stuck on the bone. It will take some effort to remove it. Skillfully use the chakra scalpel to cut off the painful nerves of the wounded, slit the skin and flesh, remove the broken kunai stuck on the bones and tendons, then stably suture and bandage, and finally add a healing technique to remove the severed nerves once connected. The operation is over. The kunai is stuck in the ribcage bone, which is already considered good. After Jingyi arrived at the camp, one of the guys who took over was unlucky. He was shot in the butt with a shuriken. The position of the shuriken stuck was a bit awkward. If he moved it even 2 centimeters towards the middle, this big man with my brother's chrysanthemum table probably won't be saved. When the injured person was sent to the medical room, many people were shocked when his pants were cut open. Fortunately, the big brother had already fainted when it was delivered. If he knew that a group of people were standing together to watch his butt, he would probably be so angry that his blood would rise 3 liters. Master Jingyi, this patient's poison has begun to spread. Master Jingyi, the patient here is seriously injured, please start treatment as soon as possible. Lord Jingyi. Late at night, after a day's work, Jingyi was sitting on a chair and didn't want to move. Orochimaru walked into the lounge with a smile on his face, and he couldn't suppress the smile that raised at the corner of his mouth. It can be seen that he is in a good mood and has gained well. Unfortunately, after being busy all day, Shizuchi didn't have much time to discuss the puppets with Orochimaru. Episode 70. It's not impossible to watch onlookers, but you have to pay more. When I was in Konoha Hospital, I didn't realize that when I got to the camp, I would be exhausted to death. Although medical ninjas don't need to go to the battlefield and can just stay in the camp, it's a pity that not many people can understand the busyness of medical ninjas. Especially when there are many injured patients, you don't even have time to eat. But he, Hyuga Jingyi, is still in charge of the medical room. Whenever he encounters a difficult patient, he will come to him immediately. Looks like you got a good harvest. It's okay, but the next step depends on you, Jingyi-kun. Orochimaru placed the seal scroll on the table. He was curious about how Shizuchi gave life to the puppet. How many? Dragging her tired body, Jingyi picked up the scroll and weighed it. 200. Orochimaru showed 2 rows of white teeth. He didn't know if he had been in contact with the corpse for too long, which made his whole person look eerie. I'll give you 20, and the rest will be mine. Shizuchi was not too greedy and gave Orochimaru 1/10 of the amount. No problem. Orochimaru agreed immediately. He doesn't care how many puppets there are, he only cares about how Jingyi makes the puppets alive. Jingyi took the scroll and signaled Orochimaru with his eyes, "You can go, the last step is not convenient for others to see." Orochimaru had no intention of leaving. Seeing that Jingyi wanted to leave, he made a suggestion, "Let me watch. The puppets that follow will all be yours. The materials I brought are probably enough to make 500 puppets. Depend on." Orochimaru, you went there for a robbery, right? You had so much material on you. Is it really so profitable to do research? In just over half a year, Orochimaru has already become rich. Is it cost-effective to let Orochimaru watch and harvest 500 puppets? It's a good deal, because even if Orochimaru saw it, he couldn't copy it. And even if he could copy it, he would do it slowly through research, and it would not have any impact on Jingyi. No, 500 puppets are too few. After thinking about it, Shizuchi rejected Orochimaru. I think it's possible, but you'll have to pay extra. 1,000. Orochimaru understands Shizuchi. As for money, I am not short of it now. I dare not say that I will become rich overnight. At least I still have a lot, and I will have a steady stream of income in the future. As long as the problem can be solved with money, it is not a problem. The worst-case scenario is that I can continue to work in my old business and continue to engage in research and development to make money. Now is the war period. In addition to various ninja tools, various military food pills are also popular products. Orochimaru doesn't mind studying these things. As long as he can make money, let him sell his but, well, this can't be sold. Make a deal. Snapping her fingers, Jingyi reminded, I hope the puppets will be handed over to me as soon as possible. Don't delay too long. I rely on these puppets to save my life. Follow-up materials will be delivered to the camp soon, and I will only read them without asking, and they will not be leaked. Please rest assured, Shizuchi-kun. Orochimaru assured. That's good. After the conditions were met, Shizuchi no longer hid the secret from Orochimaru. He took out the processed puppet from the scroll, put his hand on the puppet, and under Orochimaru's eyes full of curiosity, injected chakra into the core parts of the puppet. The puppet, who could only lie down on the floor, suddenly moved twice and stood up like a living person. His closed eyes opened and turned blue. This? Although he was mentally prepared, Orochimaru stood up in shock and stared at Shizuchi's hand in disbelief. Injecting chakra, the puppet can have life? Is this possible? How is that possible? Orochimaru felt that his outlook on life had been impacted. Ha ha ha, interesting, so interesting. Suddenly, Orochimaru clapped his hands and started laughing. That was all. The guy was shaking all over, as if he was having an epileptic fit. Giving life to a puppet, no matter who sees it, will have their views shattered and start to doubt life. Especially those who play puppet. Once Jingyi's puppet collides with the puppet army of Sand Shinobi Village, I am afraid that the puppet masters of Sand Shinobi Village will wonder if they have gone the wrong way. Unfortunately, giving life to a puppet is impossible to replicate unless they also have the reincarnation eye. After taking a look at Orochimaru, who was shaking and laughing, Shizuchi took out a large number of puppets, quickly injected chakra, and then put the puppets away. Soon, all the puppets turned into his shape. There are still 20 puppets in poor condition in the lounge, which are reserved for Orochimaru. Jingyi-kun, it's a pleasure to cooperate. Orochimaru doesn't care about the quality of the puppets. Anyway, these puppets will not be used for fighting when they are in his hands. Most of them will be dismantled for research. Or use it for related experiments. So it doesn't matter if the selling price is a little different. It's a pleasure to work with you. I hope you can fulfill your promise and don't talk nonsense. Of course not. Putting away his own puppets, Orochimaru left happily. If it weren't for the lack of conditions in the camp, he would have wanted to start research on the spot and use the puppets for experiments. It's time to rest. After seeing off Orochimaru, Jingyi started to wash up. Unexpectedly, as soon as he lay down, his eyes blurred, and he disappeared into the lounge and appeared in Shigulin. Xiao Shizuchi, the training of Sage Jutsu is about to begin. Katsuyu Sage, who channeled Shizuchi from the ninja world to Mount Myaboku, turned his huge head to remind Shizuchi that the training of Sage Jutsu was about to begin. I won't practice anymore, okay? I'm sleepy. Before Shizuchi could say anything, a group of little Katsuyu crawled on top of him. Forget it, let's practice. If you can't practice to death, practice to death. How can you sleep at this age? Roll them all up to see who can be rolled up in the end. Jingyi sat cross-legged on the ground and began to absorb the rich natural energy in the Shigu forest according to the teachings of Katsuyu sage. The Shikatsu forest, Mount Myaboku, and Ryuchi cave are the three holy places in the ninja world, and their natural energy is much richer than that in the ninja world. Practicing sage jutsu here will get twice the result with half the effort, and of course, the probability of turning into stone is also greater. With rich natural energy, outstanding talent, and the guidance of Katsuyu Senmin, as well as the help of a group of young Katsuyas, Jingyi soon felt that natural energy began to enter his body. Click. The first time he tried it, he failed to find the balance point. Shizuchi's arm turned to stone. Little Katsuyu who was lying on him quickly crawled over and wrapped his body around his hand. When the petrified hands were covered with mucus, the petrification on the arms gradually receded. This is much easier than the toad oil from Mount Myaboku. An imbalance of natural energy will cause petrification. Little Katsuyu will absorb the out-of-control natural energy to prevent Jingyi from being petrified. If it weren't for being covered in wet mucus, Shizuchi would really like to give this group of Katsuyu a thumbs up and a 5-star review. Wish everyone a healthy Dragon Boat Festival.